Hello, hi, and welcome to Meaningful Mondays with me, Rashmi Shetty, a space where I share my life lessons. And today's is something that happened way back in 2013. Somewhere in the month of December, when I was contemplating giving up radio and RJing as a career and focusing completely on the third eye, at that point, I was doing a show on radio when a listener called in to share something about the show. And after he finished sharing whatever he needed to share as an experience, just before cutting the call, he said, Rashmi, you know what? A friend of mine is coming up with this musical show and he's looking for an MC. So I said, yeah. So he was like, so I'm just thinking, why don't you meet up with him? I burst out laughing and I said, MC? I've never done MCing before. And the best part was, this listener hadn't even met me. So he was like, I said, no, I don't think I'm cut out for MC. RJing is pretty good and I'm happy with it. So he said, you know what? He's looking for somebody who has really good communication skills, and I think you'll fit the bill perfectly. So why don't you just meet him? I said, okay. And I shared my email ID and told him to send me all the details, which he did. And a couple of days later, I met up with the producer and the listener for the very first time. The meeting went off very cordially. We were very warm to one another. The listener, in fact, in the email had written to me that carry a couple of recordings of your show so he'll have a fair idea of how you speak. So I did carry and I gave him the recordings of my show and I said, you can listen to this and then take your call whether I'm okay for whatever you have in mind for an NC. So he said, sure. And somehow, in spite of doing all that he asked me to do, giving him the recording, at the bottom of my heart, I had like huge doubts whether I'm even cut out for MC. So the meeting was over and he said, okay, I'll get back to you in a couple of days, which he did. And a couple of days later, he called in to say, I really like the way you speak. I think I'm going to go ahead with you. Maybe we should catch up a couple of times to design the whole show. So, can you meet up on this day? And that's how we met a couple of times. But each time the meeting was over, intuitively, I somehow felt that he was still not sure with his choice of the MC. And maybe he's taking me because he doesn't have a choice. And this is because I was doubtful about my own capacity since I never ever believed that emceeing is my cup of tea. And about 3 days before the show, the posters were up, the tickets were out. And 3 days before the show, he called me and he said, Rashmi, we're having a rehearsal with the orchestra and the musicians and singers. Why don't you come in? And just spend about half an hour to 1 hour. You'll get to meet the team as well. Prior to that, I'd already sent him the script. So I said, sure. And I went there. Um, I just formally met up with everyone. And suddenly, to my surprise, the producer told me, Rashmi, you know what? Why don't you pick the mic and say something? I said, I've only sent you the script. I've still not got familiar, so I'll be reading it from the paper. He was like, yeah, that's fine. And even I knew somewhere that he was looking for an approval from his team because these singers and the musicians had all been added into his team with a lot of years of working together. And I was the latest entrant. So I said, sure. And I picked the mic and I said, whatever I had written as an intro to the whole show till the first singer comes on. And the moment I finished, everyone gave a big round of applause and said, wow, okay, this is perfect. This will be a great start to have. And they were very appreciative and kind in their appreciation. And I noticed that the producer was beaming because he had the approval of his team. I still wasn't sure myself whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I'll make a fool of myself on stage because I've never done this. Informally, I had done emceeing with big crowds, but it was more like a community get together, and therefore it didn't matter because it was professional. So I just went ahead, and I still remember that day in December when the screens opened and I started speaking. It was an amazing experience because for whatever I was saying, the audience was responding immediately. And it was so different from radio. And by the time the show was over, and when I walked off, I noticed a lot of the audience members came up and said, "We hope to see you more often. You're really good. Loved your stories." They had very generous, good feedback for me. While my doubts were all getting completely removed, at the back of my mind, I was very clear that now emceeing is something I would definitely take up because I enjoyed this whole experience. And as I was coming back home that night, I understood one truth of life, and I still hold it as a life lesson, and that is when an opportunity comes to you, even if you think you're not prepared, remember it has come because you're ready. Just grab it with both your hands and face the opportunity. Because using these kind of moments in life, you never know how your life would change and the course of your career would. If today I have a mixed bag of experiences in my kitty, it's only because every time an opportunity came, I just grabbed it, fully believing that I'm equipped with whatever it takes to face that challenge. Stay safe, stay blessed.